We're the school's digital journalism club. Last week we had a session about how to build online portfolios, so a lot of our events are going to be like that, very focused on online news and digital journalism, as you might expect. But this evening we're taking a break to do an event that's a little less online-centric and more about just the journalism school in general. And it's about how to pick an emphasis area, which is extremely important. So I want to say that there's a lot of opportunities to get involved with ONA. We run social media, we have a blog, there's tons of event planning like this. We're also part of a national organization. So our other exec members are around. Wave, everyone. Talk to any of us after the event, and we'd love to tell you how you can get further involved. But for now, I want to turn it over to our lovely panelists. So what we're going to do is have each of them go through it first here and, of course, introduce themselves and what their emphasis area is. And also, if you could just briefly say why you picked that emphasis area. And then for our advisor, Amy Bruer, down here, if you want to talk about briefly maybe the most important things they should be considering when picking an emphasis area, or maybe even mistakes you've seen students make in the past while picking an emphasis area. And then I have one question to get things started after that, and then the floor is yours. So, I want to start here. Take it.
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Jennifer, and my emphasis is magazine editing. So for a while now, I've known that I wanted to work for a magazine. I really love long-form journalism and just magazines as a platform. And after I went through the Missourian course and I worked with really great editors, that's kind of how I tailored my interest within the magazine sequence to look into editing.
I'm Marie. I'm a broadcast emphasis with a focus in producing. I came in wanting to do print, and then after taking 2100 realized that was not for me. So I focused in on video, and I realized after working with that I loved kind of bringing together an entire newscast and putting together a show for someone to watch, and every day is different because the news is constantly changing. So.
Hi guys, my name is Caitlin Swica. I'm in the print and digital sequence. I came in knowing I wanted to write, and so kind of between that and magazine, and I kind of figured this is more tailored to newspaper writing and kind of breaking news type stuff. Also, my experience with the Missourian has been in sports writing, so if any of you are interested in that, feel free to ask me. But I feel like it's a really strong emphasis area if that's something you want to go into in terms of writing, maybe not so much long form pieces, but getting a lot of experience and a lot of stories published.
My name is Evan Arnold, and I'm international photojournalism emphasis. I guess I really like international issues and photojournalism, so they sort of combine well. And doing international also gave me a lot more freedom to pick other things outside of strictly photojournalism, which is sort of good too.
I'm also Evan Townsend. I'm representing Convergence. My emphasis is multimedia production. And I chose this because I was really interested in the changing nature of media, and I wanted to be able to kind of adapt to that after I graduated. And I'm really interested in the idea of being able to see a story through start to finish, and Convergence gives you those kinds of skills. So, you know, if I went out and reported on a story, I wouldn't necessarily need a photographer or a videographer to come with me because I'm capable of seeing all aspects of a story through. So that's one of the advantages of Convergence.
Okay, I'm Charlie. I'm in strategic communication. Simply, I just thought it'd be a lot more fun than journalism. Because I started off doing that, I didn't want to do PhotoJ, but then I realized I didn't have much of a journalistic impulse. And so thinking about it, I realized watching the Super Bowl, I cared more about the ads than the score, or I'd read through magazines and care more about what the ads were in there than any of the articles. So I realized that I could probably keep track of them.
My name is Amy Bruer. I'm one of the undergraduate academic advisors in journalism. I think the first thing I would say to you is listening to all of these students, they're talking about I'm doing print digital sports, I'm doing photojournalism international, those sorts of things. When you start thinking about your emphasis area, think about just that, your emphasis area. Do not worry so much about the interest area. So magazine is an emphasis area. Magazine editing would be an interest area, which just narrows it down a little. But ultimately, if you focus on your emphasis area and discovering which among the 6 emphasis areas you feel best suits your desires, your interests, your needs, then the interest areas you can think about that later, because there's not a significant difference between the within an emphasis area. My campus, you totally know. Emphasis areas, my emphasis areas. So don't get too bogged down. I just met with a student today who knows she wants to do convergence, but I don't know, do I want to do international, do I want to do entrepreneurial, do I want to do just straight up reporting? She just was really confused. But at the end of the day, when I laid all of the checklists in front of her and she saw that the difference between those things was very small. It was maybe a difference of 1 or 2 classes over the course of 4 years. So kind of think about your broader interests within journalism. Am I really interested in advertising? Am I more interested in news reporting, short form writing for a newspaper? Am I more interested in in-depth, long form writing, something more similar to a magazine? Do I want to kind of get my feet wet in all the different types of converged media that I can do? So that convergence might be a better choice for you. I will also say that pretty much all of the interest areas are going to incorporate some amount of converged media in it anymore, just because that's the way journalism is going. So we can't really stick you in print digital and have you only write for the newspaper. You're also going to learn about social media, some photography, a little bit of video. That's also why we have you take 2150, no matter what area you're doing. So at the very least, you'll have minimal skills in those different technological areas.
Cool, thank you. One question I want to ask everybody before we open up to the floor is, as we get into the journalism school, we all have to pick an area that's going to eventually land us in a newsroom or an ad agency that we work for. And since I'm in Convergence, I've had the chance to work in a few of them, and I've learned that there's a very, very different culture to each newsroom. To me, KBIA, the NPR radio station, is very relaxed. KMU is very, very like go, 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 which is TV news. You have to have a show at 5 o'clock or the screen goes black, right? So if you could, briefly go through again and talk about the newsroom or the agency that you've worked in, talk about the culture of that and what people can expect. And then from there, it's all yours. So go ahead. And whoever wants to start, I'm going to start from this end.
Okay, yeah, so like right now I am in Mojo Ad, which is one of the 3 Stratcom capstones. Each one kind of works slightly differently depending on what your interest is within Stratcom. So Mojo is an ad firm with like real client where there's 3 different teams that compete to have the winning campaign that the client will, depending on the client, then actually create. So a lot of it is very competitive. It's a lot of hours, but at this point it's also like exactly what we want to be doing. So it may seem daunting, but it's one of the best classes I've taken. The other 2 I don't know as much about, but like AdZoo is a little less about competition. So you're still doing like really similar work. It's for a different client, but you're not so much competing with other teams for that client. And then Yaya Connection is the other one, which is more for researchers, and that's like a really research-heavy environment. So instead of producing a campaign, they produce a deeper, more full-fledged research book.
I'm also Convergence, so it's kind of hard for me to answer this question since I've been in every newsroom I think on campus. So I won't take that away from you guys. I'll let you explain your newsrooms. But I will say that each newsroom, depending on where you work in the newsroom, is very different too. Right now I spend a majority of my time here in Lee Hills working at the Missourian, and I work at the graphics desk, which is a very different feel, I'm sure, than Caitlin over at the copy desk or the sports desk. So just keep in mind that a newsroom has several different atmospheres within itself too.
So to the Evans, you guys had a different reporting class experience then, because you had that was based in the Futures Lab. So why don't you describe that then? Because people who are going to be looking towards convergence will be taking the 4804 convergence reporting class. So explain a little bit about how that worked, and it was different than the traditional work and be centered in one newsroom experience.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I teach that class, so that's kind of what made me think to have them do that.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in convergence, definitely sign up for the email from ONA because it's a very convergence organization here. And feel free to jump in, but the newsroom experience for convergence students is a class called 4804 Convergence Reporting, and you spend every other week working on a team story. It's teams of 2 to 3 people. And you have to go out and find a story yourself. You have to pitch that story. You have to figure out what newsroom you want to pitch it to. So it's more freelance. I mean, you're very much on your own and that sort of thing. You get guidance on how to find those pitches, but ultimately finding them is up to you. So you don't really get assigned stories a whole lot. On the off weeks when you're not working on those stories, you'll be working in a newsroom. And are we still working with the Missourian? Okay. I thought it had changed since I took it, but you can produce multimedia pieces for the Missourian. That would
Weren't
be
you in the Parenthood semester? No.
I was in the learning.
Lifetime of Learning, yes.
Lifetime of Learning.
That one just didn't.
So you can produce a long form multimedia piece for the Missourian. Then if you go to KBIA, you're basically doing the same thing that a broadcast one student would be doing. So you're pitching stories. Sometimes you get assigned stories. You'll go out, you'll report those stories, write a script, edit that script, and a lot of times it'll go on air. And then the other one is KOMU. Sometimes you'll go out and you'll take photos of a story that a reporter is working on. I got the opportunity to operate some live cams too, so that was pretty fun. And you can work in all three of those newsrooms too.
And Newsy.
And Newsy. I didn't work in Newsy though,
Oh.
so.
Yeah, I was really easy. It's sort of like an online news analysis site, so sometimes you'll write stories, and what you do is like you'll get a pretty recent story. I had a couple of breaking stories, which was actually really difficult. So what you do is take sort of stories from different news sources and then aggregate them into one, and so you can either write the script or you can edit video. And so I ended up, I think I wrote the script 3 times and I edited once, but so yeah, that's what you do. And I actually took convergence reporting over the summer, so instead of doing every other week, it was all at the same time. So you were in a newsroom at the same time you were working on your weekly story. Yep, but it was about only like a month, I think.
7 weeks.
7 weeks, yeah. So, okay, it was a little more than a month. But yeah, so it was a little bit different. And as far as PhotoJ goes, you have the option of doing convergence reporting or news reporting, I think, at the Missourian. And I think a lot of people go to Missourian, but for my interest,
If I can correct you, only if you're doing international photo. If you're doing the regular photo sequence, you work in the newsroom. One semester you can't do convergence reporting, you have to do reporting at the Missourian, and then you spend another semester as a part of the photo staff for the Missourian.
yeah, and because I'm not traditional PhotoJ, I haven't done this staff photography. But an important part of international journalism is that you study abroad, and so you do have the option of doing internships all over the world. So I went to Argentina this summer, and that's where I did my internship. And so all the newsrooms there are really different too. But I guess in general, it's a lot laid back than, at least in Argentina. I guess it's different everywhere else, but in Argentina it's a lot more laid back than the newsrooms I lived in. So if you're thinking of international, or just studying abroad in general, that's always a possibility.
I was going to say, if I could interject as well, you don't have to do international to study abroad. No matter what area you choose, you can always study abroad for a semester. It will still count towards your requirements for your interest area, as long as you go through the school of journalism study abroad program.
So my experience has been at the Missourian. I've been there, I guess, about almost 2 years now. I did the beginning reporting semester. I did a year, well, advanced reporting is generally just one semester. Because I was in sports and I covered the basketball team, it was like kind of a weird schedule, so it kind of stretched. But yeah, normally you do one semester beginning, one semester advanced, and right now I'm doing a semester on the copy desk. And like Evan Townsend said, I'm kind of having a hard time maybe thinking of one way to describe the newsroom, because it really does depend a lot on what beat you get put on. And you do get to rank your beats and request that. So one of the advantages of the Missourian is that you can kind of hopefully tailor your experience at least a little bit to what you want to do. You could do maybe a public life beat and maybe cover city council meetings. You could do what I did, do sports. There are beats that are kind of more features oriented. But Yeah, I would say, and you know, a lot of people end up getting funneled through that Missouri newsroom at some point. Because magazine people do take beginning reporting, I believe, and a lot of photo J people who end up taking beginning reporting once before they join the photography staff. But I'd say, like, no matter what your beat is, it's very work intensive. Obviously, you're gonna expect to put in a lot of hours on your beat. And in some ways, it is kind of what you make of it, I guess. Like, I mean, you do have to do a lot of work to get, you know, a good grade, but if it's only your objective is to get a good grade, you can do your 2 or 3 stories a week or whatever and do that. Or you can really kind of dive into it and get a lot out of it. So I think one of the advantages of Missouri is that you can kind of choose your own adventure, I guess. And the other advantage, it's very like, you know, there is the news cycle, so there is the breaking news aspect, and it's web first, so we are putting stories up online, you know, as they happen. And you do have the advantage, just as with any sequence, but of having editors who are professionals. And, you know, every day there's a budget meeting to talk about what's been in the paper and what's going on, and to reflect on the whole process. So like I said, I don't know if there's any one word I would use to describe it, but it is pretty, I think, true to the experience of working at kind of a small circulation paper.
For broadcast, you start, like Evan mentioned, broadcast 1, you're reporting for KBIA over in Jesse Hall, so you're doing radio pieces to kind of get your toes wet into the broadcast world. And then for broadcast 2, you have to get cleared. You kind of submit work every week to Greeley Kyle. And you have to get cleared, and then you head over to KOMU, and once you head over there, you basically live there. It depends what time you're in the newsroom, really, to what the atmosphere is, because if it's like at the beginning of a shift, everyone's kind of hanging out, working, kind of whatever, and then it's like an hour before the show, and a story gets dropped, or breaking news happens, and the show just blows up. And so everyone's running, and everything's crazy, but it's kind of that, if you like that adrenaline rush of kind of having to figure things out really quickly, because you have to be on at 5, you have to be on at 6, 9, 10, it doesn't really matter. You have a show to do, and you get the opportunity to report. I did live shots and on sets pretty much every week when I did reporting last semester, which I hated because I hate reporting, but I did it, and now I'm producing 3 shows a week. So you're there a lot and it's really intensive, but it's so much fun because I love producing, and so it just depends on the time of what the newsroom is like, but it's kind of like a big family because we all kind of live there and are together all the time.
Yeah, so for me, I went through the Missourian reporting course, and I actually wrote for the community beat, so I did a lot of I found my own stories and pitched them. It was very much self-paced, but there were also longer features and human interest pieces. But also, if you're interested in magazines specifically, you can request to write for the box beat. And as an editor, or as a reporter, I guess, the first couple weeks, it's because it is a weekly magazine and it's completely staffed by students, it's very scheduled and routine for a while. So you get a story and you have sources, but it's a very quick turnaround with deadlines. And then throughout the semester, you'll be given more free rein to go out and find your own stories and pitch them to the different departments in the magazine. So if you have a certain interest in theater or arts and books, you can work with the department editors on that. So you do get that kind of sense of what a magazine production schedule looks like through that course.
Great, thanks everybody. So open the floor to questions. I mean, that's what the rest of this is for, so sure, right here.
Okay, since you spoke about emphasis and the difference between emphasis and interest, if I want to emphasize in broadcasting or writing, but I want to, my interest is sports specifically, that's how you look at it like that?
Yeah, you would do sports, would be your interest area within broadcast, but again, the difference between that and regular broadcast is minimal. I'm going to tell you guys straight up right now, at the end of the day, what you're getting from a journalism degree from this school is you're getting the tools and the skills you need to be good communicators. I don't care if you do sports journalism as your interest area, you are still equipped to go out and maybe change gears and decide you're going to do politics this year because you have the tools. The subject you apply those tools to is up to you. So don't get so bogged down in I must study sports journalism because I want to do sports. ultimately, if that's what you want to apply your skill set to, just become a good.
To shape, craft you as a journalist, and then you can
Yes.
take some classes that deal with
Yes.
sports.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. We want you to have
Right.
all the tools you need to get a job, period,
Right.
and then work your way into that job that you really want.
Right.
Would you say that's fair, Amy?
And the other part too is, and I've heard lots of advisors say this to other folks who are in Amy's position, the degree that you walk out of here with, anybody who walks out of here with a journalism degree is going to walk out of here with a bachelor's in journalism. So it's not going to say magazine journalism. It's not going to say radio, television. It's not going to say convergence. Everybody, regardless of their interest area, their emphasis area, whatever, you're walking out of here with a bachelor's of journalism. So what shows up on your
good school.
Right, from one of the world's best. So in terms of what shows up on your transcript, what shows up on your diploma, an employer is just going to see journalism. And you're going to have those skills to be able to translate them in any discipline, in any beat, in any way.
And in communications at large. So keep that in mind. I know some of you haven't picked your area yet, so it's still kind of early on. But when you graduate and you go to look for a job, cast your net wide. You are going to be equipped to do almost any communications related job. It doesn't have to necessarily be journalism. Maybe you got there and your first job is working internally for a big corporation with their internal communications, or maybe their communication between themselves and the public, or a not-for-profit, or a government organization. So don't limit yourself. You will have the skills that are going to set you up for many, many different jobs that are communications related.
Who's next? Go ahead.
Or
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, Evan Townsend.
Yes.
So, your work here at the Missouri was mostly, video and stuff like that, but less writing. Am I right?
Yes, it was a
Okay.
multimedia piece. Of course, you have to go out and shoot that video and then later edit it and create a script from the transcripts of the interview, etc. So there was some writing involved, but it wasn't anywhere near the.
So do you ever get a chance to actually do some writing, like a grant digital major or someone who's focused on that?
Absolutely. In the 4804 convergence reporting class, when you're doing those individual projects or those team projects that are basically freelance and you pitch them to a newsroom, each of those stories will have multiple components, and sometimes those components will be a text piece, and you can pitch those stories to the Missourian, so you do have that opportunity to work on your text skills, your writing skills.
The convergence reporting class is also the only one of the reporting classes in each discipline. Each one of the emphasis areas requires a reporting class, with the exception of StratCom. The convergence reporting class is the only one that is writing intensive. So for anybody who wants to say there isn't any writing in convergence, trust me, not only do we do a lot of writing in convergence, it's just a different style or multiple styles, but that course can also fulfill your upper level writing intensive requirement for graduation.
How that class have that way, and the Missouri class doesn't, I have no idea.
Then somebody from the Missourian class should come talk to me, because I applied for it after taking the writing
We've
intensive
been
certification.
denied because of the fact that we don't have a structured enough set of requirements for that.
And that's the issue, because the requirements are a certain amount of writing and then revision on the same document.
Right.
So I think that's,
The
because
turnaround time is
I
so-
wondered that myself actually when I first started here, but that's why. But I will tell you this, all of the interest areas have a writing intensive course within them somewhere. So one of your classes, no matter what interest area you take, will be writing intensive and will fulfill that requirement for you. The journalism program has 2100, which is your built-in lower level, and then there's one in every upper level. For some it's the capstone, for some it's an earlier class. But journalism is great, you don't have to worry about those writing intensive requirements for the university, they're built in.
Who's up next? Anybody? Go ahead.
How many spots are open for Vox?
This year, I think we have, do you know,
Yeah, I can probably speak to that because I teach the Vox Capstone class in the summers usually. I've taught that with as few as 5 editors and as many as 24 or 5 editors, which we don't like to get it that big. For reporting for Vox, out of that overall Missourian beat, where we have maybe 100 reporters in the class, there's usually between 8 and 12 Vox spots open. So to do it, you need to make sure that you have have essentially a compelling application for it. You know, like the kid who said, that they've written for for a professional magazine or something like that, or somebody who has a particular interest in long form or something. But everybody who takes the reporting class takes the same reporting class, and that's good because you're learning from Jackie Manishinsky and Pulitzer Prize winners and stuff like that. Regardless of whether you're writing for whatever. And if you're on the Vox beat, you can also write for the Missouri. And we encourage people to do that because the drawback to the Vox beat in the reporting class is you're working with a lot of student editors because the editors in the capstone class for Vox are the ones who are editing your stories. And they're overseen by a professional that there's an extra layer there where you're working with individual students. So, it's not by any means like a death knell to a writing career if you don't get into the Vox beat as a magazine reporter or anything like that. You have plenty of chances to take intermediate advanced writing later on.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Sure hope so. Sure, Rebecca.
Okay, I'm a freshman this year. I don't really know what emphasis area I want to do. So what would you guys suggest I should do this year to narrow it down?
Can fight for who answers
I would suggest you're doing one of them right now, joining clubs. Because when you join clubs like this, and look at some of the other clubs, join all the journalism clubs because you're going to meet students who are already older, are in their emphasis areas, and talk to them. Have you taken J1010 yet?
I was Polish.
I'm sorry.
It was fall semester, yeah.
You're going to take it next semester. They've revamped J1010 totally, so you're going to really get a really good introduction to the different emphasis areas. That's part of the reason for making you take the class. It will help you sort of narrow it down. And then if you get down to the wire and you're like, oh, magazine, convergence, magazines, I don't know, go see your advisor. And we would get you the names. Are you arts and science or undeclared journalism?
Undeclared journalism.
Okay. Go see your advisor. We would get you some names of a couple of faculty people, one in each area that you could go talk to, ask a few more questions, and then they can maybe help you narrow it down a little. Because the faculty, they're not here to recruit people for their emphasis areas. We're all here to make sure that you end up in the one that's the best fit for you.
Also, I feel like,
yeah, sure.
I was going to say, I feel like it will probably become more evident as you go through the introductory classes, because, like she said, she took 2100 and said, no way. And then, for me, I took 2150 and it was just, not really my thing. So I think as you get closer to it, those should hopefully help you kind of sort that out because they're pretty intense.
I'd also say working with the editor helps a lot because there's a lot of ability there to try different kinds of things. If you got Move, which is a little closer to magazine, you can report, you can do photojournalism pretty easy. And then through that you can also discover that maybe you don't like any of them.
There's the student radio station, there's a student television station. So, go try those things out. That way you can, in a little bit more relaxed environment, kind of just get to see what goes on.
It's never too early to apply for internships either. So if you're interested in one, I'd suggest trying it out as soon as possible because you don't want to be taking your capstone and realize wait, this sucks.
Now usually, if you change your mind once you started your emphasis area and you think, whoa, I was on the fence and I made the wrong choice. If you're not more than one semester in, you can switch without delaying your graduation dates for the most part. Very often you can still be graduated on time. So it's until you're about 2 semesters into your emphasis area, then it starts to get a little more it's not too late, but it might delay your graduation. But up until then, so you've got plenty of time. Just because you start one, we're not locked in. We do allow you to change if you discover it's just not the right fit for you. Or I've had students that loved their emphasis area, but then went and did an internship in something that was slightly outside of that emphasis area and decided, they fell in love with that other area instead and switched. So.
And really, feel free to talk to any upperclassmen. I'm sure any of us, if you want to get an email or anything like that after this, we would be happy to sit down with you and talk about it. So just, don't hesitate to do that. Any other questions? Sure, go ahead.
Are any of you guys minoring in anything? Or are there any minors that pair really well with the journalism major in general?
I don't think I've made them official yet, but I'm minoring in both art and film studies, and was at one point also thinking of getting an English minor, but that one won't work out. But yeah, no, it's definitely very possible to get minors, and they all like any minor works really well with any emphasis area because it just helps you nail down like a more specific thing you might want to talk about with that. With strat time, even though you're not reporting on anything, it just helps to have like a really broad kind of knowledge base, which I think is true for all of them.
Yeah, I really think you can pair just about any minor with journalism because, you know, it's our job to know stuff and to have a bit of background when we go into a story. I'm a sociology minor, and I don't think I'm ever going to go like, report on sociology, but I'm really interested in, you know, the human experience and telling the human story, so I relate to it in that way.
I know a lot of people do poli-sci, so I did that. But I think a minor is also your opportunity to like escape the J school because J school can be really, really stressful. And so when you're doing a minor, I mean, it is always helpful to have something that like poli-sci obviously helps if you're interested in political organization, but something that is fun and enjoyable that is maybe not that the J school isn't fun and enjoyable, but to like balance the stress of deadlines and that sort of thing. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm a double major in political science, and started out doing that because I had a couple credits from high school, and I thought I was going to be doing political reporting, which I guess could still be obviously a possibility in the future. So, I mean, if you have the room in your schedule to, I mean, not necessarily double major, but definitely minor, I would say. I agree with what they've said. And also, multicultural certificate, which is, like, you might have gotten emails or presentations, but it's, like, super easy to get if you're in the journalism school because so many of the journalism classes qualify. And from what I've been told, that looks like a minor on your transcript. I'm not really sure if I know more about that.
I don't really know.
Okay, yeah.
I can at least speak to that because I work in that office.
Yeah, yeah.
And, hi everyone, I'm Elise, I don't know the name. So the multicultural certificate is basically 15 hours you take that, you know, it's courses that deal with multicultural issues. So it's a lot of women and gender studies classes, a lot of language classes if you think about taking a language. There's also a lot of black studies, different history courses count. And the thing that makes the certificate really accessible is that you can double dip classes. So classes that you're using towards your major or minor, you can also use towards their certificate. You can't do that with a lot of other programs on campus. And it's really a great way to show your employer that you have expanded your knowledge outside of just like reporting and getting the skills you need, but also you're like thinking about bigger cultural issues. And you know, and our world is just increasingly globalized every day. It's a good way to show that you're prepared for that world.
Yeah, we do that.
Along that same line, Spanish is also really popular. And I think most of a lot of, at least a lot of my friends at J school, poli-sci and Spanish.
Anybody else have minors on part of that? Yeah. I want to say that too, that actually I got to give a plug for the IT or computer science minor as well. Even if you can't do a full minor in that, it's definitely worth your time taking a few programming courses, which I know probably sounds scary, but it's a big and up and coming field. App development, web applications. If you can take a few classes in the computer science area, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, it kind of makes learning. I know Rob teaches a basic like HTML class, and after taking, I took just a couple of coding classes, and it was way easier to kind of like understand a little bit more. And like you said, they do sound scary, but it is actually kind of helpful if you're interested in maybe looking toward web development also being a thing that you want to kind of be able to gauge.
Sure. If you want to learn more about that, I'd be happy to talk to you after this too.
I can do that as well.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would piggyback on that, I don't know how apparent this is for freshmen who are here, but one thing to keep in mind is that all of our newsrooms at this point are converged, you know, some to a greater extent, some to a lesser extent. And convergence is an awesome sequence, and it has really great professors. But I don't want to leave people with the assumption that you only will get multi-platform experience if you're doing that. You know, the class that I teach is taught out of print and digital news, and it's the only class that teaches HTML and CSS and JavaScript that we have. So I've had students from literally every emphasis area, right, in that class. So certainly in your electives you can get experience across different platforms, even if you are, you know, working in a more traditional newsroom.
And I think some of you may not realize also if you're still pre-emphasis area, but once you get into your emphasis area, you're not going to be doing all journalism all the time. You're going to do 31 hours of upper level journalism. You're going to do 32 hours of more general ed requirements. They'll just be upper level rather than lower level. So that's where having that space to do a minor or dual major comes in, because you've got upper level social science, upper level humanities, upper level electives. You've got all those credits you have to fill, so you can double dip if you're doing a dual major or a minor, and that's where you can fill in some of those and also be working towards something else.
It's also when, you know, you don't have to pick your minor right away. I know that, like, I didn't really know if or what minors I was going to do until like, the past semester or so, and it's just looking at the credits I already had from taking classes interested in along the way, that I was like, oh, I can just spend my the remaining credits in this way that fills my journalism requirements that I have left, but then it's also filling these other things as well. And so it's like definitely easy to decide that as you go along.
Anybody have any other questions?
Is the drone journalism program part of Convergence, or is it?
The drone journalism program.
We're actually not teaching that class anymore at the moment.
I don't know if you heard it. But yeah, Bridget actually works at KBI. She can talk about it.
Yeah, so the drone journalism program is science and IJ and also associated with KBA. Currently the drones are grounded by the FAA, so it's kind of in limbo right now. That's yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you introduce a bit about the convergence sequence? I want to know what kind of interest areas we have.
Under convergence? Yeah, there are quite a few. I think there's 26 in total under all of those 6.
Yeah, under convergence, there's entrepreneurial, there is TV reporting, TV news, there is
Radio reporting and
radio
producing,
reporting,
emerging media,
Multimedia
multimedia production, and there's an international series as well. There's Convergence photojournalism, Convergence sports journalism. I can look it up.
Pretty much, chances are we have what you're interested in.
What else is that?
like I said, we only have 6 interest areas, but we have 26, we only have 6 emphasis areas, we have about 26 interest areas, so that means each emphasis area has several interest areas within it, except for StratCom. StratCom, you do StratCom or International StratCom, and that is it.
Just like compare convergence with any.
Yeah. When you're talking about pairing it with something,
Yeah.
do you mean in terms of subject matter? Like, do you want it to do converged arts and culture reporting or something like that?
Converged business.
Yes, that is possible. The best place to go to get some information on this is going to be the Journalism School's website, which is journalism.missouri.edu. And if you go to the academic programs tab, and then undergraduate, and then there's a tab that says majors. Like, I can show you guys if you want in smaller groups before you leave how to find that. But there's kind of a menu there of all of the interest areas, and then you can click on specific ones and have even more detailed which classes would fall underneath some of that, and give you a good sense there of what types of things you might learn as a result of enrolling in that one. And I can tell you, like, working with students and doing advising with students, because I end up doing a lot of that, I spend a lot of time on that website and looking up different things there and seeing how different courses may interact with one another and how they complement or supplement each other in doing that. One other thing I should mention is there's some bleed over in different areas. So let's say you're a photojournalism major, you choose an emphasis area within photojournalism, you have to take a reporting course. Well, you have the option of taking the reporting course at the Missourian or taking the Convergence reporting course. So if you want to take one that's going to be more word-based reporting, you would take it at the Missourian. If you want to take a reporting course that's going to be more multimedia-based reporting, where the crux of the reporting you're going to be doing is going to be displayed using video or photos or infographics and a combination therein, you might choose to take the Convergence reporting course, and then the rest of the focus of what you're doing will be within the photojournalism core. So there is bleed over there in terms of options that you have to take.
And that's even because you're in some classes at this point, the convergence reporting class is a really obvious example where you're working in different newsrooms even within the context of the same semester or the same class. And then I'm on a committee with some other folks who are working on an interest area that will be focused on design. Right now we teach separate design classes for a magazine and for a newspaper, which is really kind of silly because it's all print design. And what we're proposing to do is to, and the faculty and staff have to vote on this, what we're proposing to do is to, for example, take the basic design class and have students work at both Vox or the Missourian or cross back and forth between those two for inside pages for stuff that's templated, and then for the advanced design course they can work on covers and features for Vox, they can work on covers for the Missourian, they can work on the Vox iPad app, stuff like that. So even within some of the classes, I think the biggest change I've seen even since I came here in 2005 is even within individual classes, we are doing a much better job of letting students work across a bunch of different newsrooms, regardless of what the emphasis area necessarily is. Convergence has done a really good job kind of leading that, breaking down those. Used to be if you're at KOMU, you're only at KOMU and you never see another newsroom, and that's definitely not true anymore.
You can also use, because you'll have a very specific set of courses that you'll be required to take for the interest area, emphasis area that you choose, interest area. You have a certain amount of journalism elective credits. And again, other than StratCom, sometimes you can incorporate, a class from another interest area as one of your elective credits. So if you're a convergence student but maybe want to take the reporting class and just work at the Missouri and only do newspaper writing for a semester, you can do that, and it can go towards your journalism elective credits. So there's a little wiggle room in that way as well. If you maybe want to, you're mostly interested in this, but you want a little more experience in this other area as well.
All right, any other questions? Sure, go ahead.
It's been said that whatever you go into, you're gonna have to use multimedia stuff. They teach it in every single business area. So why would you choose convergence over another one? What about convergence is necessarily more special than just getting multimedia?
You're asking the hard questions.
The way that I would describe it and the way that I would sell our class if somebody were to ask is that let's say you're working at the Missourian and you choose print and digital, you're going to get some of that experience in multimedia storytelling and multi-platform storytelling. The benefit of coming to Convergence would be that we teach reporting and thinking of reporting with your audience in mind. Looking at who your audience would be and what and how you're trying to tell that story, and then letting your platform be driven by that. So tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, when Convergence reporters come in to pitch their story ideas, they're going to first pitch me a story. And they're going to tell me they're going to tell me what the story is about, what's new, why they want to do that story right now, why the people in our community would care about that story, or in our region would care about that story. The next thing I'm going to ask them is, who is the intended audience for this story? So who would you be trying to reach? And we let the multimedia be driven and the storytelling approach be driven by the needs of the audience, as opposed to if you're at the Missourian, you know that your first step is most likely going to be text to tell that story. And it's going to be text that is then going to also be going online, and you may be working with a photojournalist who may have accompanying still photos or video to go with that. Or if you're at KOMU, you know that the very first thing that you're going to be doing, no matter what your story idea is, the first thing you're going to be thinking about is how you're going to shoot that video for that story, and always telling that story using video. In Convergence, we're letting the story drive the multimedia as opposed to the media drive the story. Does that make sense or answer your question? I've had some practice. As I tell my students when I'm editing with them, I'm not new. I've done it once or twice before.
And that's something you'll get a little taste of in 2150, the class you have to take as well. Because you're going to use all the different platforms in there, and you'll kind of start to see how sometimes the story just sort of demands a certain platform to be able to tell it effectively.
Good question, though. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm stuck between convergence photojournalism and photojournalism. So what is the difference between the two?
I think the difference is the capstone. I think that's one of those things where there are not a lot of significant differences between the two. And so So for, if you're doing like convergence photojournalism, you take the convergence capstone, I don't know what that's called. And if you're doing the like traditional photo or strictly photo, it's the like photo essay, it's the photo capstone, and I'm not sure if there are other big differences.
I mean, you're talking, I don't know, you're asking a photojournalism person, so for me, and I have not taken the convergence photo class, but I mean, it's been
There isn't a convergence photo class per
Right.
se.
So do they take the fundamentals class? Okay.
Evan is actually right. I looked it up on the website that Amy mentioned earlier. The difference is going to be your capstone. So if you're convergence, you're going to take the convergence capstone, and if you're regular photojournalism, you're going to take the photo J capstone.
What about the Missouri Staff Course though? Like, would you still take that?
I believe you
convergence?
still take both.
Okay.
Yeah, fundamentals of Photo J, 45, 56 for both.
So that's why you want to do some research and see, is there really that much difference? And if there is a difference, is it something that's significant to me?
I also feel like that brings up a decent point that like one thing to look at is what capstones you will be doing with each thing. Because like it's probably going to happen that you're going to take a class that you might be required to take that is not exactly what you want to be doing. And that might make you question whether or not you actually want to be doing this, like that area at all. But like the capstone is like what everything you've been at the school for leads up to and builds into. And so like I'm doing Mojo Ed right now, which I knew I wanted to do a while ago, and knowing that that was ahead of me and that's what all this was preparing me for made it a lot easier to get through those classes that I wasn't as interested in, like research. And so I feel like that difference might seem small, but like definitely pay attention to like when you talk to people about those capstones, and definitely like talk to people about capstones because they'll be very willing to. Like that is like a really important reason to pick one over the other. So.
Yeah, and when we design the interest areas, talking about the design interest area, we've kind of designed them with the capstone in mind to start with, because the whole point of that is that it integrates all the learning that you've done until that point. So like, you know, the magazine area has, you know, like 4 different capstones depending on whether you want to design, write, be an editor, you know, do other things. So that's a good way to think about it. Is at the end of my sequence, is this the thing that I want to be doing? And I realize that, you know, if you're a freshman especially, you don't have to like decide on it tonight, you know, decide it right away, but that's a good way to organize your thoughts about it.
And again, I mean, you know, do convergence photojournalism, and if you want to take some extra photojournalism classes, you have your journalism electives where you would have that opportunity. So
What we're talking about is that we're talking about all the other capstones. I mean, we talked about the photo one and the convergence one. But what do you do for, you know, you said there's 4 different magazine ones, and what do you do for broadcast, and what do you do for print and digital? I mean, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So in magazine, as I mentioned, there's editing, which I'm in. So I'm an editor, a department editor for the Vox magazine. There's also design, publishing and management, and writing. So I do know, like, one of the editors right now is actually her emphasis, or her like capstone will be advanced writing. So you can definitely, like, within that sequence, you can still like dabble in those other interests if those are something you'd like to look into.
To be honest, I don't really know capstones broadcast because I'm taking it next semester, but they recently, I think our year was the first year where originally you only had to take broadcast 1, 2, and 3 in order to graduate with broadcast journalism major, but now they've added in a 4th class, which is either advanced reporting or producing. And I think for me that was kind of that class to work towards, because I am not good at reporting. I like turn bright red in front of a camera, like live shots were not my forte. So taking those classes, I was like, I'm doing this because I love the producing side. And so now that I'm in producing, I love my work there, and I love doing that part of it. And so that was my class to work towards, and this is like what I feel most comfortable in. And so this is my favorite class so far, because I'm learning what I want to do when I graduate.
rocks.
For broadcast, there's also an online center capstone, right? Or is that not a capstone, just a class?
There
used to be general class.
there's a, what is it called?
I'll look at it.
And then there's also journalism and democracy, which is a capstone that can be used for more than one of the emphasis areas. That's geared a little more, it's my understanding, it's geared a little more towards students who might be thinking about graduate school, rather than just heading out to work in the field. It's more of an academic class.
What about print digital?
Yeah, I think, is journalism and democracy the only, I haven't taken mine either, obviously. I think
I'm
journalism
pretty
and
sure
democracy.
is the old print digital custodian, so
Yeah.
it's the current, it's been around for a while, because I took it when I was in college, but it's the current.
Yeah, but I know like from what I've heard, it's very like project based, and I'm guessing like a little more academic rather than hands-on. But you do get a lot of hands-on work like beforehand, obviously. Like, and you can, I believe in your advanced work you do have like more of a choice because you can take advanced reporting if you're interested in reporting. I think if you're news design, you can take, or you can take news design if you're more interested in editing, and then I think you can do participatory journalism, which is also with the Missourian. It's like community outreach team, I think. So you have more of a choice there.
Raising capstone, but it's another option.
Right, for your advanced work before you go to capstone.
And I would encourage you guys, no matter what emphasis area you end up choosing, look at the Missourian classes. They have a lot of classes that are housed in that particular area that would teach you some really useful skills, no matter what area you're in. And many of them do not require that you have the reporting classes and prerequisites. They have many classes that you can take.
There's just one photo take capstone, so thank you to 3D projects. I'm not exactly sure it's what it is.
It's called Picture Story.
And there's in the Mizzou gallery right there. There's, I don't know if that project was done for capstone, but it's sort of like what you do for capstone. It's, I don't know what it's
There's
called.
also the opportunity in the photo J to do video as well as photo, still photography. Mostly we shoot with video on DSLRs.
Yeah, I'm in my grad class right now. It's all we use just as but it's not capstone. But yeah, photo J capstone. It's a photo project. So thank you very much for your
In Convergence, it's journalism and democracy, and then I think you have one other option.
No, it's actually not journalism
What
and
is it?
democracy.
It's
In most,
Convergence.
yeah, it's Convergence Capstone,
just
and it
called
has, yeah, it's J4992 that's affectionately referred to as Convergence Capstone. I will look up the official name, which is a little bit longer than that, but it is a project space, and you have a lecture each week that looks a lot at current events in kind of new media, and then you're also working in teams of 2 or 3 or 4 on a myriad of different projects. Each semester they're actually posted on the Convergence website under the capstone section of that, so if you want to take a look and see what's there. ONA Mizzou actually started out as a Convergence capstone project. The entire club was launched by students who did that as their work for that class. Some other examples, we've had students who have built apps for large major, and helped design apps for large major East Coast newspapers.
Web analytics.
I would tell you which one, but it's under a non-disclosure act, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we've done web analytics.
Yeah, a lot of projects looking at web analytics for different, St. Louis Post-Dispatch was a client for that once upon a time. There's a large variety, and you can propose a reporting project if you want to do a large-scale reporting project. I edited a group that did one for KBIA looking at the economic, social, and educational ties between the state of Missouri and China. And they did a 9-part reporting series for KBIA and its website that actually won a national award. So there's a lot of flexibility to either create your own or work on an established project in that class, but it's a semester-long project for either an external or internal client here at the university. Oh, the official name is Reporting, Editing, and Marketing of Converged Media. We just refer to it as Convergence Capstone.
Cool. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I mean, coming to a freshman, I'm from Houston, Texas, so I picked Mizzou because I think it's like the best school for journalism. And 1, 2, because we have the 2-year Mizzou method, right? So you do your gen eds, and then you do your upper level gen eds, like you said, but then you also have hands-on. So if one, like, when just hearing her talk, like the way she talks is basically, she has a relationship with her students. So she says, so like, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe, so I have a professor, and he's gonna be like, give me your pitches, and then they're gonna send you out on live shots? Is that kind of how it is? When you watch the Mizzou method?
Well, you'll be ready to do it when they ask you to do it though.
Okay,
It's
so
not like
you
you
just
step into
prepare.
class the first day and they say, hey, give me some pitches and here's a camera.
Right.
You're going to be news writing, you're learning how to write a project. So I mean, as you move through your program, you'll be ready for each step.
Because people really do like scare you like here. Like,
No.
they're always like, J school is crazy or J school is this, but I'm thinking like, you guys give us the tools that we need
It's
to
not,
be
J
successful.
school, it's very hectic because we're very demanding and it demands a lot of
Right.
your time.
Right.
But if you'll just work hard and pay attention and, take each step and learn what your instructors are trying to tell you each step along the way, you'll be ready for the next step.
Right.
You'll be fine, you'll be okay. You may be a little stressed out,
Right.
but you'll make it, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Part of the Missouri method is learning by experience, and that just means you will make mistakes.
Right.
I mean, your first stories might really suck. I know a lot of mine do.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the learning process. Like, you're not going to be able to get those skills just taking theory classes. Part of that is just like.
And I would definitely say that up front. If you, sitting right now, be honest with yourself, if you are not comfortable with people critiquing your work and taking a little bit of criticism, this is not going to work for you because that's part of this whole process is you do stuff, we give you feedback to let you know what worked and what didn't work. And then we expect you, when you go out to do the next thing, that you paid attention and you don't do those things that didn't work anymore and you try to do some of those things that we say, yeah, this did work, keep doing that, do more of that. So if you're thin-skinned and you're going to get a little ruffled, you just have to remember you're not your work. When we are critiquing the projects that you produce for classes, that is not a personal thing. You're not the same as the stuff you produce. That is separate from you. We're just helping you get better.
It's okay to fall on your face for the first few times. It happens to everyone.
You will. You absolutely fall on your face the first few times.
I think
But that's what makes the Missouri method cool is you
Right,
fall on your
yes.
face here and you
And
do
not
that
in front of
here.
Yeah.
You're not
It's a
doing
safe
that.
space to
You're
fall
not
on
doing
your
that in Rockford, Illinois, or in Colorado Springs, Colorado, or in
Right.
Sacramento, California. You're doing that here in
Right.
Columbia, Missouri, in the safe space that is the Missouri School of Journalism newsrooms, kind of under a bubble.
Right.
I think the coolest, I'm sure you guys have seen YouTube videos of anchors just totally flopping or doing something horrible, and it's kind of cool to our news director Stacy, he'll send out the video of someone doing something horribly wrong, and he's like, you guys learned this in B1. You know the things, you know how to do things that people in the field don't know how to do, and I think that applies to everything, and it's cool to know that you're learning from these, Greeley Kyle in the broadcast, he will rip you apart in your broadcast too, when you turn in your first package, I got a 30 on my first one, and that's average, and but you keep doing better, and as long as you listen to him and you keep moving up in it, you get cleared, and it's the best feeling in the world, because it means you get to go to KOMU, and that is kind of the hardest, you feel so accomplished when you get through those really hard reporting classes, you're like, sweet, I did it, it's so, feels great.
It also allows you to take risks. I know at least at the Missourian and in terms of writing or whatever your medium is if you want to try something different, try a new narrative format, you might write a story and you might be up on deadline and it might flop, but then you just talk about it, regroup and try again.
So you have a relationship with these, if I took her class, I feel like she'll just get really real with me, as a person.
That's very true. She definitely does.
Which is a good thing, though. I
It is.
care about you. It's great.
You have a lot of
Yeah, were you in the futures lab today? Just checking.
Well, and that's part of what we try to do with faculty too. I mean, that's part of the reason why people teach here is you get that individual work with students to do their projects and stuff like that with it. I mean, a lot of our faculty don't have advanced degrees, don't have a PhD. That you had experience in the field that you bring to that interaction with students. That's really important. Yeah, I mean, and I teach the Vox staff class, and so we have a lot of kind of come to Jesus early in the semester about we're working for readers, and here's why this thing has to be done, and that sort of thing. And the other class I teach is the staff class, and by that I mean it's not a newsroom class; it's the multimedia planning and design. But there's some, there's opportunity for critique in that class as well, and we also in that class critique the other students in the class critique one another's work and things like that. So there's lots of back and forth and give and take. But at the end of the day, the whole point of it is to make the students better, you know. Make good experience.
Yeah, and from, when you work in some of the newsrooms, you'll have students who are further wanting the program or graduate students. As well, when I was at Missouri on the photo staff, I had an editor who made me cry a couple of times early on in the summer, and I thought, how will I ever do this? But by the end of the semester, I loved her, and my photography got so much better over the course of one summer because she didn't let me get away with anything. I would sit down, we'd open the folder, and she would say, "Why did you take this photo? What is that?" She's so mean. But, I mean, it helped me. I learned so much over that summer. It was amazing.
You're not just gonna get to be really good, really close with your professors too. Like the people you work on stories with and work in newsrooms with will become your best friends because there's no better bonding experience than failing. It's true. I mean, another guy and I on our story. I was in convergence reporting. We drove to Sedalia, which if you don't know is like an hour away, and we didn't have the battery for the camera. And you couldn't put one there. So we came back, and then we drove back to Sedalia again, and we did that 2 more times. We only forgot the battery once. But just things like that, like you're gonna have stressful times, but you're gonna have awesome times too. Like really, I mean, the people you work with will become very, very good friends. A little bit past 6 o'clock, but if anyone wants to wrap it up with a few more questions, we can.
I wonder what do editors and producers do since everyone knows what reporters do. I want to know if I choose emphasis area like that, what kind of skills I would learn.
That's a great question because I spent about 14 years as a producer before I came to work here. And I still have family members who don't know the answer to that question. So why don't you go ahead and read that?
Okay, producers they kind of mold the show. So you get a half-hour show, it's your show, you get to decide what story leads, you get to decide which reporters are going to be live out in the field, you get to decide if they're going to be in the studio on set. If you decide which national stories go in, you write those stories. It's kind of like your baby, like you take control of it and you make the decisions, and reporters have to know that if you tell them they have to go live, they have to get ready to go live, they have to plan accordingly. And so it's you organize it, you make sure that it works because that's kind of represents you. Your name goes on at the end. So you are kind of in charge of the entire thing, putting it together and making it flow. And when a live shot drops, 30 seconds before the show starts, you have to be prepared to put in no lives and put in scripts and make it work because you can't just like be like, oh, pause, the show can't start yet, I'm not done. Like, that doesn't work. So you have to kind of constantly be thinking of backup plans, and you have to enjoy kind of bringing it all together, and that's what I love to do. And I love that, like, 5 minutes before the show starts, we have to totally reorganize breaking news, let's add it in, that kind of environment. You have to be prepared for that in producing.
All right.
And you may not have understood all the stuff she's talking about.
Yes. There's a lot, there's lingo I think a lot of there.
And editing?
Oh, editing at Vox. So there are kind of like 2 levels of editors. There are like the TAs who are like the editorial directors. As if you take it as a capstone or as like for magazine staff, you'll be a department editor. So those are split up by like I'm the music editor. There's also an arts and books department, an insight and news department, and a scene department. So basically, within those pages that we are allotted within the magazine, we have to like go out, find stories, source them, like determine the angles, sometimes schedule the interviews, and then we have the reporter turn those stories in, and then we go through the whole editing process with the reporters and contacting sources for like art and photos and things like that. So it's kind of, we wear a lot of different hats.
Plus the fact checking, plus the calendar
Yeah,
stuff, plus
yep.
getting art, plus.
Yeah, plus we also serve as rotating feature editors, so for like the big cover stories, we get to work on those every so often, and we write like the table of contents and calendars, and yeah, there's a lot to it. But it's fun.
All right. Well, a little bit past 6. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. All right, well, thanks a ton for coming, and just one more plug, we are ONA Mizzou with the Digital Journalism Club. We're very workshop oriented, we do a lot of things that teach you how to, build things online and learn more about the online world. So please, if you haven't, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, or come talk to any of the exec members, they're around, hi, and we'll tell you more.
And
Well,
thank you,
thanks.
panelists, for coming.
Thank y'all so much.